First of all, I don't know Horace Silver so well. I played with him, but it was 25 years ago. And I'm very, very grateful for everything I learned from him. It's interesting to hear that Horace Silver would say you can't teach composition. He's one of the great jazz composers of the 20th century. For me, it's the way that you phrased the question is perfect. The way that I keep fresh is by talking about it and examining the process and working on it with young musicians. So the workshop that we gave in New York was about really a discussion about where do ideas come from and what is the best way to express the idea once you have it. And especially in jazz, how do you relate with the musicians that you're playing with so that the composition doesn't become kind of handcuffs, that it's open and it's part of the dialogue. So I think that I learn a lot from the people I play with, and I'm very lucky to play with a lot of great different musicians. For example, Uri CAINE is wonderful.
It's very, it's hard to just say one way of teaching composition because, people come at it in very different ways. But I mean, there are ways to, help students generate ideas, see by studying other compositions something to work for or towards. In that sense, you can talk about all these different forms and how to develop musical forms. I think I'm not sure you can teach how to do something that's great all the time. I mean, in terms of talking about musical form, I guess that's something that you can't really talk about. I think a lot of it has to do with sort of knowing the musicians you're playing with, as Dave was saying, and listening together and trying to construct something, a dialogue. And I'm not so sure. I think in Europe there's musicians that are doing that too. I mean, certainly we've been influenced by many European musicians. So I think it's something that many musicians in many parts of the world are sort of interested in.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
I agree with Uri that there's great improvisers in Europe. So, but maybe I heard Ibrahim Malouf, the trumpet player. We were giving a workshop together in Paris, and he made the point that in the United States, when you grow up as a musician, you very often have the habit of being in a band or an orchestra. That's how we begin playing, is in ensembles. And in Europe, I don't know if he's right, but this is what he said. The tradition is much more about being a soloist, that you learn the instrument and you play it by yourself or as a soloist. And this explains maybe the different philosophies of playing between what's happening in the United States and Europe. I had never heard this before, so I thought it was interesting, and maybe it has something to do with the question you're asking. But yeah, some of the most crazy, creative, wonderful improvisers in the world are in Europe and have been for a long time. So who knows? I can't comment on the magic of the Wayne Shorter Quartet. It's really beyond understanding. It's beyond gravity. I've been around them a lot, and I've heard them a lot, and I've been studying Wayne Shorter's music for many years, and I don't pretend to be an expert or any sort of authority about that music.
Wow.
It's, I mean, any great music is that deep. There's the verbal explanation of what it is, which is one thing, and then there's what it is, which is beyond words. So there's a dichotomy, and as much as I might feel that I have some intuitive guidance from my experience of that music, it's very difficult to put into words how the process works.
Well, a lot of it was devoted to sort of talking about harmony, showing chords, composing, and also technical things on the piano, because he really stressed sort of developing your technique, sometimes through playing classical music and sometimes through exercises that he would make up. So he was a very inspirational teacher. And actually many people in the city that I grew up in studied with him. So that's really where I started to meet a lot of other young musicians, because I was pretty young when I started studying with him. And you know, he was also a very funny, crazy guy.
Yeah.
And if you weren't prepared for your lesson, he would send you home.
Yeah.
He said, "Don't waste my time."
I think that playing in duo, it's an illusion that you have more space, because every note that you play takes up so much more space, creates more weight, that you have the same dynamic as if you're playing in a bigger group. And the reality of silence becomes much more important. And that takes up a lot of space if you use it correctly. When you play a note, you create a silence in the wake. And everything happening in that silence is a result of what they played in that one note. So to think that if I go on stage by myself or just with Uri, we have all this infinite space, it's really, it's not true. The world is very large.
And I think also that idea of playing together and interaction, I mean, there are certain things that are different, but I mean, in terms of the ultimate goal of trying to play together, we're still thinking about the same types of things.
We're also thinking about repertoire. The songs that we're playing together are, some of them are very, very old American traditional songs with the original harmonies, and then we're playing with that, seeing where that can lead. And the original compositions we're playing are really inspired by the process of playing that very old American music.